Hello, my lovelies. I am the Maeve of all trades, and welcome back to another reading of Knight of Camelot. Finally, after a few very long minutes of silence and stares, Mabon's annoyance got the better of her, and she found herself snapping, "What do you want from me?" before she could stop herself. As soon as she realized what she'd done, she went pale. Had she any thought in her head, she likely would have started sputtering an apology, but the only thing that managed to make the journey through her mind was how much hell she'd have to pay. But her father wasn't angry. Not outwardly, at least. Instead, he chuckled. It wasn't a warm sound, but it wasn't anger. "Such fire," he hummed. "Sir?" "Forgive me, child." He adjusted himself in his chair. His posture was still stiff and strict, but his face was relaxed with an air of jovial calm. The cheerful demeanor didn't reach further than skin deep, and it made Mabon far more nervous than she wanted to admit. Coupled with the fact that her father had just apologized, in a sense. She could count all the times her father had ever apologized to her in her almost 25 years of living on one hand. And even then, it tended to come with a scolding for driving him to do whatever he'd apologized for. The shock of yet another out-of-character act almost made her snap at him again. She only just managed to catch herself before she slipped. Instead, she simply gave him a quizzical look and a quiet, "Father?" I was reminiscing to myself. It truly is remarkable how you've grown. Now Mabon was utterly lost. "Is that all you wanted from me, sir?" "No, there are things I wish to discuss," he replied, closing his diary and setting it on the side table before folding his hands. "Mabon, you've been a woman for quite some time now." Mabon swallowed, wondering where this conversation was going after a statement like that. "Both of us are getting older, and I've taken care of you to the best of my ability. And I am eternally grateful to you, Father," Mabon replied automatically. He gave her a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, perhaps it is time for you to step into the role of caretaker." A heated prickle rolled up Mabon's spine. "What are you trying to say?" she asked cautiously. He didn't pause this time before answering. "I believe it's high time that you were wed." The prickle spread from her back to her entire body. The tips of her fingers were ice, and her tongue a stale loaf of bread. Married? He'd never once even mentioned the possibility of wedding bells in Mabon's future. Perhaps this is what he'd been planning? No, he always carefully plotted out her days for her, and he'd often grow angry when she didn't do as he bade down to the detail. It was nerve-wracking, but he was always transparent with what he wanted from her. And he'd never once even uttered the word marriage. Not around her, at least. Through the haze in her mind, she accidentally murmured the word, "Why?" The smile on her father's face faded, just a touch. A warning. Why? There was only the barest trace of anger in his tone, but it was hiding an ale keg's worth of rage. Why? "Because you've been of age for marriage for well over 10 years, he chuckled mirthlessly. "You didn't think you'd be living the life of a noble daughter all your life, did you? It's high time you took your place as a noble wife." Despite the fact that she never so much as ventured farther than a stone's throw away from the castle door, she'd been educated in the ways surrounding the area. Well, educated in terms of custom and social standings, with only a touch of politics in the sort. It had never been more than the face value of political workings, but she knew well that noble women could be married as young as 12 years of age. There were times when she wondered why she wasn't among that population, but she never dedicated more than a touch of thought to the topic. She knew better than to ask why, for a myriad of reasons, the largest of which being that if it really was an oversight on her father's part, then she'd be married off as soon as he remembered. She was rather content with the life she found herself occupying, and upending it was not her heart's greatest desire. Once again, in her shocked state, she nearly lost her sense of diligence and almost said something foolish, only catching herself at the very last second. Of course she didn't want any part of this plan, but disagreeing with her father was a very poor idea. Her back still ached from the last foolish idea, and she didn't wish to repeat the experience anytime soon, which is why it was imperative that she at least appear to agree with him. She swallowed and managed to speak again, despite her dry tongue. Who do you plan to have me wed?" Her croak of a voice came from her own throat, but it didn't feel like she was the one speaking. The hostility in her father's face faded, and his smile retained its original softness and lack of anger, though this was more obviously a look of excitement, or at least anticipation. "Well, you know I've done all I can to preserve our family from those who wish us harm. I can't bear the thought of you being taken away from me." A sick twist came to Mabon's gut, and the icy prickle down her back and arms returned with a vengeance. Please don't let this be what she thought it was. It's my mission to make sure our family name is continued and upheld, so I will be the one you wed. "No!" She was immediately up from her seat, the sick twist and icy prickles evolving to a bottomless pit opening in her stomach and the coldest ice stabbing down her back and slashing her skin. He wanted her to marry him? Her own father? Bile scratched to her throat and threatened to come up and paint the walls. It wasn't entirely unheard of. Her tutor had told her of cousins marrying each other or uncles marrying nieces, but that was usually done by royals or nobles that were very high in the social order, not minor nobles who lived in the middle of the woods. And why was this his solution to the threat to their safety? What was he hoping to accomplish? No. Her father's voice struck through her frenzied thoughts. Am I going mad, or did you just refuse an order? The wise thing would be to back down, because she'd just verbally refused, something she hadn't done since she was 6. There was no way in hell her father was going to let her get away with this, even if she did submit that very second and go back to playing the obedient child. Well, if there was going to be hell to pay, she might as well give some back. Yes, she quavered. Every rational thought screamed at her to back down, but she was too consumed by the anger and confusion that came from days from being left in the dark, and the terror and disgust at the thought of her own father taking her as his bride to even notice. Really, another warning. Care to explain your reasoning? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell. It helps me so much. I have been the Maeve of all trades, and have a lovely day.